Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, January 5, 2026, time in Texas about 8 a.m. So we have some things going on. We know that President Trump recently went into Venezuela. And this morning I can confirm from Fox News that Maduro and his wife are en route to a courthouse in New York City to be charged. Then in a few weeks or months, they will go to a second court hearing to discuss bail, which of course will be refused, considering the fact that they are high flight risk. This morning, they will face charges in a New York City court and be assigned court-appointed attorneys. So that's going on. We can confirm that President Trump very likely will hit Venezuela again very soon with a second wave. We can confirm that Iran is in the process of chaos and that the Ayatollah Khamenei has evac'd Iran en route to Moscow. We can confirm that it's highly likely, according to the U.S. Strategic Security Plan recently put out by President Trump and the Monroe Doctrine, which says the U.S. will not tolerate foreign interference. It's highly likely that additional hits will be made very soon by the U.S. military on Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico. And what about the U.S. stock market and our banks? So let's get started. So we have this also from Space Weather. NOAA has canceled the CME, a G1 or a G2, previously believed that would occur on Earth January 1 to 3. That's canceled. We did have yesterday, January 4, a 7.1 M flare, which according to Stefan Burns, a geophysicist, will give us a G2 R3 today or tomorrow. So that's going on. And Stefan Burns puts forth research he's recently come across regarding the nuke tests that have been done primarily by the U.S. since the 1940s, affecting the Earth and affecting our current electromagnetic shield, and are contributing to the increase we're seeing in earthquakes and volcanoes. This morning, Ben Davidson with Space Weather on YouTube, formerly Suspicious Observers, puts forth a white paper substantiating or leading credence to information I've previously put out, that the sun is indeed tied to a revolution cycle on Earth, which is what we are seeing. So we have this going on in Iran. Steve Quayle's aggregate site DISCERN report yesterday put this out, and the Times of London had also reported details of a secret escape plan for the Ayatollah Khamenei and 20 of his family members to evac from Iran and go to Moscow, because the current protests are overwhelming the Ayatollah's regime control over the population. So, and currently it's believed the Ayatollah has assets of $95 billion, while the people of Iran have been experiencing starvation and the brutal heel on their necks put forth by the Ayatollah's regime via the IRGC. The people are in full revolt. So that's going on. And we have this for the U.S. economy. We see also January 4, yesterday, we see silver going up again to $80 an ounce. And over the weekend, U.S. silver paper certificate holders were to have sold $5 billion of silver. Apparently, the chaotic silver market over the weekend may have prevented this. And I would like to bring this to your recall. Thanksgiving, J.P. Morgan moved its Chicago metals traders that deal in gold and silver and moved them and their families from Chicago to Singapore. So it appears that last Thanksgiving, J.P. Morgan Bank foresaw some type of catastrophic event occurring with gold and silver. So that's going on. We'll have to watch and see how the U.S. stock market operates today. And as I put out on my last video, the Fed has been pumping billions of dollars into U.S. banks. I do not foresee U.S. banks failing. I believe they are strong and will be girded by the U.S. government. Now we have this about Iran coming out yesterday by New York Prepper. That Iran's banks yesterday were in a state of collapse, and that a bank emergency was declared, and the banks in Iran were told by the Iranian government to secure their data and keep money moving in case the government falls. And this morning, I can confirm it appears the government in Iran is falling, and that Khamenei has an escape plan to go to Russia. So that's going on. We have this about Iran from Hal Turner's Intel. So yesterday, we saw going to the UK, we saw a dozen C-17 U.S. military planes coming out of Hunter Army Base in Georgia and also Campbell Army Base in Kentucky. And some of the C-17s were carrying helicopters. And the type of helicopters they were carrying are the type used by the U.S. Army 160th Special Forces Aviation, or SOAR, S-O-A-R, also called the Night Stalkers. And they use the type of helicopters that would have been flown over Blackhawks and Chinooks. They went to the UK and then went on to Ramstein in Germany. It was speculated yesterday that this could be the U.S. military prep and setup for a future hit on Iran. So we have this intel coming out today, January 5 at 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that the Ayatollah Khamenei and 20 family members, we understand, were put on planes headed for Moscow. Now, Initially at 4 a.m., it was unverified whether the plane had left. Later in the morning, by about 6 or 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time today, it's being verified by U.S. intel that, one, Israel does have a plan to hit Iran, and as I've previously stated in this episode, the U.S. has been pre-positioning U.S. military assets to assist Israel in a hit on Iran. Verified, 12 C-17s landed Sunday in the UK and then went on to the Ramstein. And it's believed they are being pre-positioned for a U.S. military hit on Iran. Verified Monday, today, this morning. Israel is putting new batteries into its Iron Dome air defense system. And we know President Trump Sunday made a statement about Iran that if Iran's military began shooting protesters, that the U.S. would get involved, and we've been hearing reports that this has happened. Iran. Yesterday, President Trump on Air Force One, Sunday night, in his flight from Florida to D.C., said that a second wave hit on Venezuela is on the table. This is in response to, we know Maduro and his wife were taken from Venezuela. That happened Friday night. They're being taken to a court today. And left in place Maduro's second Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, who then initially made a public statement Venezuela was aligned with the U.S. and later came out and said Maduro was the lawful leader of Venezuela. And so they stood with him. President Trump, in response to Delcy Rodriguez's comments, is now hinting that the U.S. military will put that second wave hit on Venezuela on the table. President Trump, and Sunday night, said that he is ready to hit Venezuela in a second wave, and he is, with regard to Mexico, President Trump made this public statement Sunday night. Mexico has to get its act together. Unfortunately, it's under strong cartel control. So as I put out my previous video, I believe the U.S. will hit Mexico, Colombia, Cuba, Iran. I believe they'll also hit Ramaphosa in South Africa. Colombia, President Trump has said Sunday night, Colombia is very sick, and it has a very sick leader who sells cocaine that flows into the U.S. President Trump said regarding Petro, the president of Colombia, won't be able to do this for long. President Trump is hinting that the U.S. military may take action against Colombia very soon. So that's going on. And we have this with regard to Greenland. President Trump also Sunday night said the U.S. needs Greenland for U.S. strategic security, and that currently Greenland is surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships. President Trump's action, his action with Venezuela, and his hints of the U.S. military taking action soon against Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, South Africa, Iran, align, and Greenland, align with the U.S. Strategic Security Plan President Trump put out recently, as well as the Monroe Doctrine that indicates the U.S. will not tolerate foreign interference in America. And let's be clear, we have many of these nations engaged in interference in America. Venezuela was the primary site for Cuba, Iran, China, some segments of Russia, and some segments of Canada, engaging in a coup and the presidential election of 2020 plus. We have decades of many of these nations, China and many in South America, Mexico, bringing in drugs, trafficking into the U.S., certainly interfering with the U.S. population. So I believe President Trump is in position now for the U.S. military to engage in force where needed. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.